All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Frazee, and together we are building a decentralized social network called Citizen. So let's get started. All right. Happy Thursday, everybody. Starting a little bit late today. Figured I'd take the morning off to kind of recharge my batteries and make sure I have plenty of energy for Saturday, because on Saturday we are doing Testnet Saturday, which is where we're going to try to stand up a bunch of servers together and make sure that the network is operating correctly. Get some music started here. Okay. So a couple of things that I'd like to get done today. We have a bug, which is some votes on what we call posts that are not in a community but just on your feed. For some reason, they are not properly indexing. So that's one issue we have. We've also got some exceptions getting thrown in the notifications view. A couple of the link click handlers are just behaving poorly, so there's that. And then the big task for today is to try to implement remote community joining, which is a little challenging to be sure to implement. So we're going to see what we can do there. And then, what else have we got? I would like to get mobile styling done, if possible. That's an optional. Tomorrow, probably I'll do this offline, but I need to document server deployment for everybody. Did I have another thing? Oh, yeah. Linkifying URLs posts. That one is so easy to do that I feel like, I'd be crazy not to. So those are our tasks today. A couple of bugs right here. A little bit of protocol work right here. And some UI work right here. I'm actually a little bit stoked to be doing the mobile styles because it'll be nice to have a mobile app working. One other thing that's going on is we had some discussion yesterday about the naming of everything and whether or not Citizen was a good name. I think we're going to stick with Citizen Network as the kind of protocol name, which is sort of similar to like ActivityPub. But then for our application that we're building out here, that is currently named Citizenry, and I think that's probably what we need to rename. And I'm thinking that needs to be something, much more approachable to people, something that is easy to remember and kind of is warm. Could be in the Citizen theme, might not be, doesn't really have to be. So I've been sitting around with a domain name generator and trying ideas and not being terribly successful. So if anybody has any ideas for another name, feel free to share, and I'm going to dump that in the chat. Okay. So that should all be waiting for everybody as they join in. I'll make sure my chat widget's working. All right. Let's knock out something easy to get our day started. Let's hit that linkifying URLs in the post. So all we really need to do is, it's going to be a two-step process here. We've got the rendering of the text right here. And the trick to this is we need to, if we're going to be linkifying it, we need to construct safe HTML so that if people start putting HTML inside of the text of their posts, we don't want that to cause problems, you know, be able to run JavaScript or something. So we have to sanitize the code or the text before we render it. So let's change this to another function. Render post text. Now this right here is some old code from what we pulled from originally. It has to do with when the posts were being rendered as search results. We're going to leave it in there for now, but it's dead code at the moment. Since we're going to be rendering HTML, we have to use a directive from lit element called unsafe HTML. And so the first thing we want to do is make it safe. And that means, I believe I have a function for this right now, make safe. I feel relatively confident in that, but let's look around and see what other people have at their disposal. So this is a slightly more efficient execution. The way that I'm doing it currently basically is 4 separate replace functions. It's not exactly optimal. What they've done is group together their regex into one searching function. And yeah, and then sort of iterating through. This is something that Gamma Rush has contributed to in the past. And it looks like that was, yeah, Rockley, another person who I trust and know. So I'm going to call this dependable. And I'm going to go ahead and copy their approach. So they are going for double quotes, single quotes, ampersands, and angle brackets. We had everything like that except for single quotes. Probably appropriate though. You know, I would think that you can use a slightly different approach than they have. I'm going to create a test string which looks like A, B, B, A, B, 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 A, C, B, 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 A. And I'm going to do a test regex, which is looking for either A or C. Okay, that's what I thought. So this gives us the match, and I'm going to change it so that if match equals A, we return apple, and if match equals C, we return card. Doesn't matter. Apple, 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 card. Yeah. So that's a somewhat easier way to do this, I think. They may have done it the way they did to perhaps for a backward support reason. You're not allowed to use template strings for, I guess that sort of makes sense. That should do it for us here. Cool. So, not very different from what we had originally, just slightly more efficient. Alright, next we need a Linkify algorithm. This is one that is much better served by looking around to see how other people have done it. Oh my. This might be something I want to vendor. Of course, Syndrasaurus implementation is worth looking at. Let's look at how this behaves. Pretty simple. All right. You liked citizenry? BRB. Hey, Sarah Beth. There's really one particular reason that I like Ethereum, and that's because they've switched to proof of work, or off of proof of work. Excuse me, they switched to proof of stake. There's a number of other things about Ethereum that I find interesting and well done, but in particular, it's the switch to proof of stake, which makes it even a feasible exercise. Yeah, it's not the only stake-based network, but it's certainly the one that I trust to actually succeed the most. I have no idea how I'd integrate it, though. It's something I haven't ever touched any of the code. But supposing we did, you know, holding people's wallets on their behalf, oh boy. That is something that gets me anxious, you know, as a goal for the citizen servers. It's a lot of responsibility. You know, I don't know if I have I have mixed feelings about the question about transparency. Some degree, from personal experience, just have a little bit of trouble blaming projects for feeling a little bit non-transparent, because I kind of know whenever you have a lot of interest in what you're doing, it can be very hard to kind of consistently tell people what work is occurring, because people have big expectations and you don't know when something's going to finish, and etc. Well, that would be cool, Sarah Path. Yeah. Okay. One simple kind of integration we could do is just have tooling to set, wallet links and what have you, and if they could just have it bounce out to some other provider, have buttons to tip people or send each other money, or etc. And one other thing I'll say about Ethereum that took me a little by surprise. Let me just get this commit done and I'll talk about it. Yeah, one of the things that sort of surprised me is I have come to actually find DAOs for open source projects to be a more compelling idea than I ever expected to. It's one of those things that if you told me about it at first blush, I'd be kind of like, not really, not really that interesting of an idea, But the thing that kind of strikes me about, so the idea of a DAO is it's a smart contract that is got governance rules around it, and you're supposed to pool money into it and treat it like an organization. And it's meant to be sort of a replacement for forming a formal legal entity, like a nonprofit or a for-profit. And they're called DAOs because it stands for Distributed Autonomous Organization, which almost in a way sort of includes some bigger ideas that I think are strictly necessary for this to be compelling. The thing that hits me as compelling about it is, as Serapath well knows, when you have a kind of a loose collective of people who are trying to collaborate around something, it can be really difficult to handle shared resources like funds. Especially whenever you're scattered around the world or you don't know each other super well. And that becomes a really big problem for like open source projects. It's like, I'm not going to create a nonprofit for any random project I want to start, but I might want to be able to pool resources with people working on it, maybe take donations and funnel it into the contributors and things like that. So DAOs will be kind of a really lightweight way for people to do that, which I find really interesting. Yeah. You probably know much better than I do, Serapath, about the state of the smart contract language and features. I haven't actually dug that deeply into it. Okay, so linkifying URLs is done. What I want to do is work on the mobile styles, because that's what I want. Bizarrely, one of the few times I'm actually stoked to work on mobile styles. Yeah. Well, I'm holding out a little bit of hope that given the amount of resources they have accumulated, they'll push through their problems. Anyway. Oh, awesome. Oh, I'm always happy to talk about this stuff with you, Serapath. I mean, part of the fun for me is having folks in the chat talking, so. Let's see if we can't solve this indexing problem on people's posts. And we got a PR from Melanie over the night, which I appreciate. Yep, we were missing passwords in our test. I'm going to go ahead and merge that. Thank you very much. Oh, you know what I just totally forgot to do?
Citizen.
Okay. So let's see if the votes indexing test shows any anomalies. That's one. Okay, let's see how rigorous my tests are. Well, I might take you up on that. I always respect people's experience. And always like a chance to just hear people's thoughts, so that'd be good. So let's see here. It's bugged. Is it just taking a second to load, or is it just bugged? It's just bugged. Cool. So, like, this is a good example here. This one should have a lot more upvotes, because I've gotten notifications for... There's one there. There's one there. Let's take a look at the thread. In fact, only Todd's is showing up. That might be... I'm currently following... Oh, is that not clickable? What we might be seeing here is I'm only following 3 people, Josh, Tia, and Todd. So yeah, I do kind of know what's going on here. It's a self-post, so I'm actually getting the correct view by the original logic. Yeah, I in fact know exactly what's going on. I got a good friend calling me, so if you'll excuse me, I'm just gonna talk to him real quick and be right back. Okay, I'm back. Really good friend of mine in LA. I've mentioned this a couple times, but I actually, before I got into tech, was into like acting and writing and stuff like that. And this was a really good friend of mine from high school that I used to do that with. He stuck with it and is now in LA and trying to get a show made. So good luck to him. Anyway, hey Sully, glad to have you back as always. I think the crew's doing good today. And we are currently looking at this situation here where we have upvotes that are being communicated to me in my notifications, but not captured in my index. I've gotten, so this one right here, I've gotten a variety, whoa, not that. I've gotten a variety of notifications of people upvoting, but I'm only seeing one. And I'm pretty sure what's going on is that this index, this aggregated count, is only pulling from my number of followers, but the notifications are telling me about upvotes from everybody in my communities. So the interesting question is like, should, in the self posts, the way that like replies are indexed is to only show for people who I follow. Even if you're in my community, if I don't follow you, I won't see your replies to my self posts. And the community indexer respects that currently in the notifications. So I'm not seeing any replies by anybody in my notifications to my self posts. And so now the interesting question is like, okay, is that the ideal behavior? Kind of an interesting question here. Because like, self-posts only showing activity from people that I follow is a really different behavior than the community stuff. The thing is that, like, the communities have a kind of complete concept of who is involved. There are 14 members of this community, and any activity by those 14 members will show up on any posts related to this community. But the self-network is completely subjective, which means that there could be, looking at this post again, there could be a bunch of replies on this post. And could be people in my community, and I'm not seeing them. But somebody else looking at this could be seeing those replies. Now, there's like two questions to ask. One of them is, do we like that behavior? And if not, what should the behavior be? But number two is, how do we communicate that behavior? I think we can reasonably communicate that in the UI. It's kind of like in Twitter, where like you can turn on only show replies by people followed by the author. It's kind of like that mode. Except that it's that mode like for every post, and it's actually subjective. So I would see replies by people that I follow, but other people would see replies by people they follow. It almost makes me wonder if, like, The confusing thing about this is just the lack of universal or global consensus about the view. Because, like, one way to think about this is, suppose Todd replies to this, and I follow Todd. I would see his reply. Then suppose somebody that Todd follows replies to him. I wouldn't see that reply, but Todd would. And that's a lot to communicate. Even if we're able to communicate the concepts to people, there's a difficult question about whether or not it's possible to communicate the complexity of the actual implementation to people. And it sort of makes me wonder if self-posts ought to be done differently. Well, I can't just add a filter toggle because the indexing has a huge effect on this. It's not like we have the option to see activity by other people in the network at present, because in order to do so, we would need to index them. And if we wanted to index them, we have to answer the question about who gets indexed for self-posts. Communities answer that question, but if we're going entirely by the personal follow network, it ends up being a wholly subjective design throughout. And it almost makes me wonder if we should, like, disable certain behaviors on self-posts. For instance, you can't reply in communities that you're not a part of, and we should probably make it so that you can't vote in communities that you're not a part of. So should we make it with self-posts so that only people that are followed by the original author can interact with it? That seems like it might be a yes. So the first thing we need to do is fix the problem that highlighted this, which is make sure that the community indexer isn't So this is where the indexes come into play, Melanie. Because what needs to happen is if you have a rogue piece of data out there that isn't respecting those business rules, that data just needs to get ignored. And for us to successfully do that, we just need to make sure that our indexers are correctly ignoring. I can't talk anymore. So, like, we just need to make sure that, like, this right here, the community indexer, is only indexing posts that have to do with the community. I didn't originally do that because it's not immediately obvious when you're looking at a vote what community it's a part of. Because it's not enough just to say, is this person a part of the community? We have that. It also needs to say, is the post a part of the community? Bob does not follow Carla. As a result, he should not see that. Boom.
Citizen.
It is very, very cold in Austin right now, which is what Brian is talking about. Well, I believe the correct character is... So we need to update the UI. Don't allow actions to so that's how we're going to handle that. So self posts are set up so only people followed by the author can interact with them. I'm going to grab some more water. All right. Let's hit these exceptions getting thrown in the notifications. Morning, Lorenzo. So that one works. Okay. It looks like this code just needs to get updated. So this is what we need it to look like. That actually should solve the problem. Okay.
Citizen.
That's that. Now let's clean up the modals. Modals are still using the Shadow DOM, which is why we're getting some kind of ugly, gross behaviors. So let's put an end to that. How much of this can't be done by Tailwinds? Some of that will be a little hard. But overall, not too bad. Not too bad. Should be like an MY auto, I think. Doesn't appear to be. Okay, let's see how far that gets us. Okay, off to a start, to be sure. Seems about right. Okay. Looks good to me. Alright, that one got foobarred. So... Okay. Okay, that just leaves one last modal. And none of that, none of that, none of that. Get to those. Start here. Un momento, por favor. Shadow Dom is one of those things that's like totally awesome, but totally a pain in the butt. It's just a little bit buggy, to be honest. Not terribly, but just a little bit. Just a little bit buggy. 200. Okay, that's good. Change avatar is supposed to be a button. So we change that to a citizen button, which is our helper class for providing consistent button styles. Our helper component, more accurately. Okay, so I made that. This one's going to be similar to this, so why don't I copy that over? Probably don't want the top border. Okay, that all looks fine. Okay, so we will want some of the same control styling that we used over here. Always impressed by how quickly I get things done with Tailwind. Okay, so this should fix those bugs we were having with thread rendering. It's now faster because we're not having to use the shadow DOM, and the fab icons aren't disappearing on us.
Citizen.
Okay. So this one seems like we really must solve it. And then after that, why don't we bump up the remote community joins? We do have tomorrow to do some dev too, so if we don't get it all done today, that's okay. Probably just get rid of these leftover search inputs that are doing nothing. All right. So that one's pretty easy. Tell you what's going to be interesting is trying to make these rules for interactions or rules for indexing user definable, and then having to get the user interfaces explaining what's going on. That'll be an interesting challenge. So the trick with this is, if it's a self-post, we need to go by the reply route. If we're looking at a thread, that's easy to find. But if we're looking at your feed, that's a little less simple. We could do it on a post-by-post basis, which is sort of interesting. It's to underline when highlighted. I've now created a post which I can't interact with. There it goes. kind of ugly, but it needs to be rendered. I also kind of think that self-posts should also indicate it, that they are self-post in the same spot, but just give it different. Something like this. Yeah. I'm really not totally sold on those community indicators at the moment. They're very noisy. What if we move them to here? I think that might be right. I think that's right. Maybe just a little too light right now. And that's a little dark, kind of domineering. You know, I almost wonder if we ought to not render the user ID, which is pretty noisy, and instead render this up there. Because we can introduce the like hover cards to give more info. I'm kind of thinking that's what we should do here. That does feel a little cleaner to look at. Yeah, comparing those two, I like this change. So here's what I'm proposing. Here's how it used to be. This seems a little more scannable. Word. And as soon as possible, I would like to get these things resolving to their display names as opposed to their, you know, IDs, which are tough to look at. Yeah, I think I'm going to set it up so that you can reply to anybody that's following you, not just the IDs. Yeah, it'd still be nice. I mean, they're just noisy, you know. One moment. Yeah, so I think I'm going to make it where you can reply to anybody that follows you, even if the original author didn't. It's the easiest to implement, and it kind of makes sense. It's a little complicated, but not like terribly complicated. Cheers. Yeah. That's where I get my real juice. It's antacids. I'm like, I feel like I'm a cliche from like a buddy cop film. Like the chief that keeps on. Getting too old for this shit. Exactly. Okay. No, I don't need to do that. I can just do as. Okay, so now I need to find somebody that's not following me, which isn't impossible because we have 14 members here. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. A lovely intro post by Doletta. You know what, I'm going to step out 1 second. Keep hitting the wrong cue. So 2 things we need. One is that these should give a little tooltip explaining why you can't interact with them. And then this needs to give the same information. Cool. So now we just need the little indicator. Okay. Couple of hot garbage situations here. So let's solve the opacity problem by doing this. Okay, so 200 is a little too light. It's still too light. That's about right. Now we have this problem. Couple of overlapping problems there. Hang on. So the tooltip and the title are interfering with each other. It's really long. We can simplify it a little bit. I mean, we should have, at least for the author, we have the display name. I think we have to leave it as is. No, you have to be followed by, if it's a self-post, you have to be followed by them. It's kind of like in Twitter when you restrict replies to your followers. Ah. So it's like that. Ooh. Ooh. Thanks, bro. Nah. Maybe if we take it down to like only members of... Yeah, YouTube does drop comments, especially if there's anything that looks like a URL. It's not only followers of, it's only people who they follow. It's a little bit subtle, which is why I'm getting all these prompts in there to explain this stuff. Definitely sucks that we had to do the tooltip to the right, but that overflow hidden problem in the modal kind of demands it. Well, that's a problem. Can either solve this by including... Yeah, I'll just do it like this. my followers. Get unique followers. Simply yourself. Sheltu, are you on the stream by chance? There we go. So yeah, that's interesting. So we're getting some sense of like how this plays out socially. In that like you see any posts in your community or any posts by people you follow, which means that you will also see posts by people that you follow in communities that you're not a member of. Which is interesting. We could set it to only show self posts. Of people you follow. That might make more sense. I mean, it's sort of interesting in a sort of discovery sense to see like where people you're following are posting and like discover communities that they're a part of. I like that. But on the other hand, you might just kind of be like, don't really care about your crypto, bro. And you just love posting the crypto stuff, and I'm not here for that. Ryan, which one would you prefer? Maybe it should be configurable. So Sholto, I'm guessing you're not on in the stream right now? Every once in a while, folks DM me. It's just easier to reply in person if I can. So we could make it something that the application controls or something that's configurable. It just means that like whenever you're fetching posts, you're doing filtering on the client side as opposed to on the server side. And so like you could end up in a situation where like your filter settings that you have applied end up causing the entire feed to come back with nothing. You could send your settings up to the server side to do the filtering there, and that would help. A little less flexible in that way, but only saying that Ryan thinks we should only see the self posts. Like football season, I don't care, but I might want to know what groups people are posting in otherwise. Yeah, maybe it's like it just should be another means by which you discover activity in other groups or in other communities. Kind of like the hometown fork of Mastodon, where you can just elect to post to the community versus posting to the Fediverse at large. Yeah. Is there any problem with doing it all client side? Just what I was describing, which is like the server will be giving you a bunch of, giving you more than you need. Wait a minute. Who's pulling shit? I see how it'd be. I get rid of user IDs and somebody starts screwing with me right away. I mean, appreciate what you're doing. We'll get back to that in a second. Okay, so making it all client side. So like what I'm talking about specifically, Serapath, is there's a WebSocket API that we are saying, give me posts in the home feed, please. And if we did it client side, that API would give you more posts than you need, and then you'd be doing filtering on the client side. The downside of that is if you have a lot of filters being applied and those filters are hitting a lot, you could have round trips that come back with absolutely no useful information. And as a result, your feed load time, your perception of the feed load time would be really bad. And we need to think about dealing with, let's call it imitation. Yeah, I mean, traditionally the way you deal with this is to show the user ID along with the post. If they hadn't had again there, right, like I wouldn't have noticed. But we're dealing with a little bit of a UI clutter problem. Yeah, I wouldn't. I think you will eventually. Like, imagine for instance, you had a client configured or written so that should just show just the header bar for messages in a group you're not a part of. Yeah, it's a little tricky. Got a number of open questions bouncing around in my brain. I'm going to let my subconscious work on that for a second. And reply to Shelto over here. So I'm not looking, no, it's not the tree threads that are the problem. There's two things we're talking about right now. One of them is whether or not we should show posts by people you follow in communities that you're not a part of. My predilection is no, but then the question becomes, okay, then should we make this something that's configurable, or where should we implement that kind of filtering? So that's question number one. Question number two is, how do we deal with our information density right now? A change I just made was, instead of showing the user's ID right there, I'm now showing where they posted to. So this is a post to the friends community, and this is a post to Electro Pizza, and this is a self-post. And as much as I like showing the community there, you do run into this problem where somebody could imitate somebody else and it doesn't become immediately obvious. Of course, you could say, just add a hover state showing the ID, but then it's just very easy to trick people because people are going to be skimming. And I mean, it took me half a second to even realize what I was looking at. First, I thought it was a bug. So let's start with this question about the feed logic. I'm kind of inclined to say that it should be opinionated because you can actually self-assemble the feed by just going to kind of running the same logic that the server is running, which is to where is that? What it does is it goes through everybody you follow, goes through every community you're a part of, and then lists their posts individually, and then merges them together. And this is not super efficient as it is. It will get more efficient if we ever implement a secondary index for this, which I'm inclined to do, but it's a little complicated to get a good secondary index for this, so I don't know exactly how that'll pan out. And in fact, this is a complicated enough thing that I haven't even gotten pagination done for this yet. That's a little bit problematic. This is a slightly broken implementation for a number of reasons. If we begin to start filtering out, see, if we just change this to filter out all community posts, you end up with the potential of, I'm only fetching 10 posts for a given user, right? And if their last 10 posts are in communities that I'm not a part of, what I would want to get is the first post by them that doesn't have a community on it. But I would basically get no posts from them. And because there's not pagination, I would just never ever see it. Yeah, this is just a temporary function at the moment. It needs to be improved. It would be logical to get a secondary index involved. The trick with doing a secondary index is you have to kind of reconstruct that secondary index on the basis of when they follow and unfollow people or join and leave groups. It's like a secondary index of secondary indexes as well, because we're talking about the community posts showing up inside. A little tricky. This may never get put into a secondary index. You may just do a secondary index of who you follow to just make that one a little bit more efficient, but keep these separate. But it's a lot of reads occurring to construct your home feed right now. It's not efficient. But I think I am going to bake an opinion for the moment and just take out community posts from your follows list. And so anybody that you're following that's in making a community post that you're a part of will show up on account of the community feeds. A little bit tricky to test this because I really wanted to be doing it off the live data set. So I can trust that I got it right. I guess let's just make sure it didn't break anything. And if not, we'll consider it correct. Oh, this again. Did it crash? It did crash. That bug is killing me. I have not been able to figure out what that is. I'm guessing it's trying to access a Hypercore before it's like set up, maybe? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, this looks right.
Citizen.
So that's that out of the way. And now we have
Citizen.
update my test server to use the latest. Okay, so his pizza posts are gone now. Okay, and as a result, I can interact with everything on my feed. So now we got to think about what to do with that guy. That may be an issue with... Yeah, I actually ran into this earlier. There's something wrong with my config for Vercel, so let's actually, thank you for reminding me about that. Let's take a look at what's going on there. This is the rule that's supposed to be handling that. So that matches this, and then we got citizen.network, post, and then a key. Should be correct. Let's see if that fixes it. Calling it try one because I'm not confident I'm going to get it right the first time. And I'm not going to give that a commit bump because it doesn't really count. We'll give it a commit bump when it actually is working. Okay. And as soon as I get the email telling me that built, I'm going to... All right. Don't allow interact actions to occur post the index. Okay, that's handled. Make the hard decision about info density versus ability to trick people. So, how to deal with this question? I'm going to stretch my legs, and then we will answer that. So, probably not even 5 minutes. BRB. Okay. Let's see if this got fixed. Hey, that fixed it. Now we get to do it.
Citizen.
Space hey, eh? Hmm. 72,000 users. Good for them. That's what they meant by retro. That's funny. Boy. I think I've actually seen this before. I'm kind of afraid to click on any of these. They even have like the profile photos that are, I mean, I don't know what, if people are like intentionally trying to do profile photos like they used to, but these are very much the old school vibe of those profile photos. All right, Jeff, let's see what you got. Huh. Okay. Boy, slow is right. Oh my god. Oh man. I mean, one thing I'll say is I appreciate the degree to which people on it are committing to the bit. Like, these customizations are totally in line with the aesthetic. Oh, I even got the custom cursor. Oh, man. You know, I think, I don't know when the YouTube, I forget when it used to be used for these things. For, like, embedding music and stuff. Flash widget, yeah. It was very similar to home pages, yeah. Yeah, I know, right? I'm trying to decide how I feel about this. There's part of me, like, I guess, you know, obviously there's the kind of the joke, the novelty aspect of it. But I guess one thing I'm trying to decide is, like, whether or not there's something here that we lost as things got sleeker. Because the degree to which it's unpolished is sort of enabling, so to speak. It's freeing. Like, I can't imagine right now, including some of the kind of information he has in this, you know, in this profile, like this kind of bio here. But I'm also sort of like, I'm not really sure I want to do that anymore. You got like the mood, amused. Yeah, the thing about the expression side of it, though, is like, one of the things I kind of wonder is like whether or not expressing myself via HTML, I don't know if I personally care about that as much now, because it's like we've done a lot of the kind of expression you can do via HTML. You've kind of seen it. And the downside is that you end up with really inconsistent interfaces, plus potential security risks. So I'm kind of more inclined to say, like, I'm interested to look for like new ways to express myself. And then just like always have a way to bounce out to a website or a personal, you know, homepage, if that's what you're aiming for. Yeah. I think probably I think we'll probably get a return to this kind of self-expression when AR/VR kicks in, which fits with kind of what I'm getting at, which is like, I agree about wanting to self-express in unique ways, but I'm personally just kind of, maybe it's just me, but I feel like I've played that game with HTML and I'm ready to move on. But like once AR/VR comes along, there'll be new ways to express and new things to try, and I'd like to have that freedom again. Syncing blogs to RSS might be cool. Yeah, it could be. All right. We gotta think about this community thing. Suppose we didn't show community. We are now down to a very clean UI to be sure. But I do think something's a little bit lost by not knowing what community the post is in. It'd be kind of like, Reddit without showing which post the Reddit post is in. Nina, yeah, okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. The way that there's a lot of sort of flexibility points that we're baking into Citizen. Case in point, the application side is divorced from the server side. So a lot of flexibility there for people to work from, and then of course a big part of it is being able to run your own servers and being able to run your own communities. And I would like to extend that even further to like having very clean, simple ways to create your own aggregators and to specify the algorithms that communities use and aggregators use, and etc. It's really very much a big part of this is opening up the UI layer and the algorithmic layer and the community management layer and the hosting layer to users, right? So it's very much around deconstructing the pieces so that it's flexible. What's currently not included in that is the ability for an individual user to control the interface in a meaningful way. We're touching on the one thing that hasn't been an objective here. So you don't have a profile where you can customize it significantly visually or really express yourself through those mains. And I imagine you could create an alternative application to accessing the network, which is able to read from, additional data schemas that are not core Citizen network schemas that provide that kind of customization. So the space is certainly there for it to be created. But by and large, my bet, certainly we could take an opposite bet here, and instead of trying to make the application be separate from the user's profiles, we could instead be trying to focus on letting users customize the visuals of their profile and things like that. And it's my bet that that's not what most people are looking for right now. It's certainly not what I'm personally looking for right now. So, yeah, that's kind of... Most popular places took customization away and it didn't seem to cause riots. I mean, in fact, one of the big arguments for like why Facebook beat out MySpace was in fact because it did unify the UIs. Because like, this is a mess, right? It's just one of the things that it became really clear when we did MySpace is that people, by and large, have no taste or didn't have taste as an objective for what they were doing with their profiles. And you know, the thing is that like to make a profile that actually looks good, it takes hard work. It's not fun. What people wanted to do was like copy and paste in clips of, you know, CSS, and it just became a nightmare. I agree, custom means insecure. So, you know, like, this is fun, but it's also just like, oh man, if I had to, like, if Twitter looked like this, I wouldn't be touching it. And I love Twitter. It's like, this would be just like, oh, come on, man, don't, where are your posts? Oh, you use custom CSS to move them all the way down here. That kind of thing. You know, just, I don't know if that's just a huge draw to me. I also say that, speaking as somebody who does a lot of UI work, I don't see it as a hobby, to be honest. Like, I don't mind doing it. I enjoy it to some degree, but I certainly never sit down to make a website just for the fun of it. I always have some reason that I'm doing it. So I'm just kind of inclined to say user customization of the UIs outside of like choosing different applications, which of course can introduce that capacity, but just as our kind of what we're projecting here, I just don't know if that's a big objective here. I mean, and you know this comes from like, I get where you're coming from. I mean, it's one of the things we were trying a lot with Beaker for some time, was the idea of using personal websites as profiles. So a lot of my opinion is actually informed by spending time with that idea, with that objective, and just getting somewhat, you know, developing this kind of feeling I have now. It's just like, this just isn't working. So maybe that's why I kind of come in on this a little bit, you know, heavily opinionated. The thing that really killed it was the security question. I could not figure out how to... Well, it was security and consistency of UI. Like, when we were doing everybody using a personal website as their profile, when you visited their profile, there was just no guarantees about the UI, and no ability to, like, inject controls so you can see, like, this person follows... Or you follow this person. Like, you couldn't have a UI element in there because there was no trusted UI on the page, so we were trying to stick it into the Beaker Chrome, and that just wasn't great. It just spent a lot of time cranking on it and just could not get it to do what I wanted. Hi, Kiyosako? Kiyosako? However you say that, welcome to the stream. I am not falling in love with any of this. Feels like I'm getting closer, but so that's when it's not the IDs, but it's the actual display names. And that's just a fake display name for the moment. That starts to feel a little bit more palatable. You know, obviously we got can much more easily tell that this is somebody goofing around. So that's good. Yeah, I think this is actually right. So it's time to solve the display name cache. actually, that'll give me what I'm looking for. The thing about the display names is resolving them currently would involve doing a profile fetch for every one of them, which is not very efficient in BRB. Maybe how we should do this is like this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use session storage. So like sometimes we actually know the display name because it's like given to us in the metadata of the post. And I'm wondering if like we can cook up a kind of a clever system for pulling from that and like adding that to the cache. No, we don't really need gun for this. Basically, like, I'm just trying to minimize the cost of having to talk to the home server. Or at least minimize the frequency at which we hit the home server for this. Because, like, if we do a naive version of this, the naive version is also just kind of like the worst case of the version I got, which is every time you hit, you need a display name, you do a get profile on it. So there'd be a lot of additional round trips that you'd prefer not to have to do. So first thing we do is we bundle them all together. So that helps. Second thing I'm going to, so there's only one get profile, per. Second thing to do, of course, is cache into session storage. That also helps. Third thing I'm going to do is add in code where you can, basically anytime any code gets a display name, it's going to set the cache manually. And that's what this is for. It's going to wait 3 seconds to see if any of the code, subsequent code, does that. So it's kind of a very, very hacky way to do state threading in a sort of distributed fashion through the code base. And ideally, it'll get hit in that amount of time, and that'll be that. Good example of that is, suppose I'm looking at a bunch of posts here, and I also want to list, like, let's say I'm looking at somebody's profile, and I want to list this community here. Maybe, or this is a better one. I want to list one of these. It's possible that, like, he will have replied to one of them, and so we will have gotten their display name via the post list, so we could set it there, and boom, you're done. This is like a usage. There we go. So two, three, go. Resolve is not defined. Oh, right. Forgot I did that. One, two, three, go. Nice. Called it. 3 seconds is probably longer than we need. Let's just make it 1 second. Probably could even just be half a second. Okay, I can live with this. So now let's pop over here and do the same thing here. Ooh, what happened? That's right. So this ought to be pulling from session storage sooner. I need to set. You know, let's not bother with this. Let's just do it this way. It's really not needed. There we go. Okay. That feels pretty good to me. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
Citizen.
Seems pretty clean. Pretty concise. Okay, so this person has stopped screwing around. Hammer, you, I don't know if you're in the chat. I haven't seen... Don't actually know who that is. But anyway, thanks, whoever that was, for highlighting that. What is that about? Interesting. It must be a reply to somebody where the post I don't have. Interesting. Indeed. Okay. Let's see what happens if I do the thread view. Same story. Okay. Don't feel like I'm terribly successful at getting people to, like, I feel like people are sort of beginning to actually use it. I don't know. I was trying to make the idea of doing the test net that we just like don't actually run any real servers, and don't think I'm successful in achieving that, but oh well, whatever. I guess, I mean, it looks like I'm not going to have to make any breaking changes, so it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so where are we? We got those parent post 404s in the feed. We got remote community joining. And these guys. May call it a day. Good bit of work here. We got linkifying URLs and posts. We fixed the confusion around activity visibility, and then really refined that. Fixed up pop-ups and modals, which was a little bit of CSS rework. Fixed the notifications error, and yeah, we're all ready to get your data nuked. I don't think I'm going to get the remote community joins done today. Let's see if we can get it done tomorrow. So for tomorrow, we got the issue with those 404s in the feed. Hopefully that'll still be accessible. Remote community joining, a little bit of UI work, and then maybe mobile styles. I'm betting I'm not going to get mobile styles done by Saturday. Yeah, especially because I need to like prep docs for everybody. Okay. Trying to think if I really do or don't have any more juice in me here. Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up. All right, thanks everybody for joining. Hopefully we'll start a little earlier tomorrow, more closer to the regular time. Appreciate that, Lorenzo. All right, catch you all tomorrow. Have a good one.
Citizen.